Hello. Chapter 14. Picking up his sandals from beneath the stone where he'd left them, he headed for the craft quarter to ask Cassius for help. Cassius knew the magistrate in charge of public works, who could stop the road if he wanted to. He was the man to ask. It wasn't long before he reached the silent forum, where most of the shops still had their shutters up. Veils of early morning mist still shrouded the statue of the emperor in the middle of the square, but you could just see the eagle on his hand. As Topher ran across the cobbles, his bare feet slip-slapped loudly, but soon he was where he wanted to be, on the corner opposite Marcus's house. What now? The shutters were up, the door closed. Should he cross the street and knock on the door, or wait for someone to come out? Were Cassius and Marcus still inside? Sometimes they started their work very early. As he wondered what to do, the wondrous car came out of the alley at the side of their house. Seeing him, she crossed the street, tail held high. "Salve, car," he said softly, stroking her head as she rubbed her silky fur against his legs and patted leather thong dangling from the sandal in his hand. "Where are they, Car? Where's Marcus?" And it was amazing. She stopped playing and looked up at him with round amber eyes. Then, as the mist lifted and the sun appeared in the eastern sky, she took off in long leaps towards the sun and the bathhouse. Delighted, he ran after her, but his delight turned to dismay. Before he reached the baths, he saw wooden stakes marking the route of the new road, which went straight to the heart of the sacred grove. Clearly the gods were already angry. The sky was on fire. The black oaks crowning the hill looked as if they were burning. Meow! Car was looking up at him. He hadn't realised he had stopped. Meow! Her voice was urgent and urging. "Come on, Topher, hurry!" As they reached the bathhouse, he saw the road gang already digging ditches along the line of the stakes, and with the gang and the overseers were a couple of Roman legionnaires strutting their cockerels in their red-crested helmets. As one of the gang straightened his back, a legionary ordered him to work. Another legionary shouted at Topher, "On your way, you long-haired girl!" Hurrying into the bathhouse, Topher saw Cassius in the portico measuring something. Today there was no cheerful salve. He didn't look up as he ordered Topher to get working. Topher started to say, "But there is a matter of importance." But Cassius didn't listen. He strode off to another part of the baths. There was no sign of Marcus or Car now. Perhaps she had gone to find him. As Topher began to chip away at a pile of shale, he thought it best to obey his master. He kept eyes and ears open. He must speak to Cassius, or even Marcus soon. Trouble was brewing outside. The legionaries were shouting insults in the Artabates. "Move your feet, stinking Celts! Get a move on, idle Brits!" If Bryn wanted to start a rebellion, he'd find willing followers. The mood inside was different too. Even the slaves didn't speak to him. The woman who usually came to the baths in the morning didn't arrive. Cassius didn't come back, and nor did Car. When Marcus did appear at lunchtime, something was obviously wrong. He was with Cassius, and they were both rushing out of the door onto the street. As Marcus ran after his father, he said something to Topher about Vulcan, one of their gods, being angry. Topher managed to say, "Yes, and our gods will be angry too if—" But that was all. Marcus had gone, urged on by his father. Topher grew desperate. He had to do something quickly. Why all this rushing about? Had Bryn done something already? He got more news from Decius, one of the slaves, whom he found in the hot room when he went looking for Car. Car was okay. Decius was feeding her with small pieces of cheese, which she loved, but Decius wasn't okay. None of the slaves were. They sat, head in hands, some of them, on the edge of the bath. Decius said there had been a dreadful disaster back home. Pompeii, a town where some of them came from, had been destroyed by a volcano. The mountain had exploded and fire had destroyed the whole town. Vulcan must be very angry with them. It was terrible. Things started to make a bit of sense. Pompeii was where Marcus and his father used to live, where his brothers and sisters still lived, or had lived. No wonder they weren't behaving normally. Decius said they were at the temple offering sacrifices to the gods. It was mid-afternoon when they returned, and Topher was back in the portico working. Car was with him, sleeping on a warm piece of floor. But when Marcus stopped to say they'd been to the temple of Jove because there was no shrine to Vulcan in Calaver, she woke up. Marcus said he and Cassius had also been to Venus's shrine to ask her to protect his mater and sisters. His voice faltered slightly, and Topher nodded to show he understood, but Cassius snapped, "Act like a Roman, not a sentimental Brit." He ordered them both to get on with their work. Marcus, with Car at his heels, headed for the back of the building. All Topher could do that day was pray to his own gods to protect the sacred grove and bring his father home soon. He didn't see Cassius or Marcus or Car any more that day. When he reached the compound at nightfall, Bryn the younger was just inside the gate talking quietly to Derry, another young man of the tribe. Like Bryn, Derry had spiked his long hair with lime and painted his forehead blue. When they saw Topher, they stopped talking. Clearly something was afoot. Later, Bryn said that he and Derry had been to see the Druid who had approved their plan. The Druid who lived in the woods hated the Romans. "What plan?" Topher said, but Bryn tapped his nose. "If you don't know, you can't tell your Roman friends, can you, little brother?" Topher felt more worried than ever, but at least there was still time to do something. He should have made Cassius listen today. Cassius and lots of the Romans obviously had problems of their own, but keeping quiet about the road would not make things better. In fact, it could make things worse. So after the evening meal, Topher crept out of the compound once again and headed for his master's house. And that's the end of chapter 14.